Welcome back, investor, to another episode of Passive Income Adventures. We have a guest on with us today, Brian Samson. And Brian is going to be talking about how to hire virtual assistants, how they can help you out in your business. And Brian is a very experienced passive investor as well. And so he's kind of the embodiment of the show where he has done a lot of adventurous kinds of things. He's figured out how to make a living from it and then how to use his income to pay for more adventures. And so that's basically what we talk about. I want you to go more on more adventures. Think about the lifestyle that you want, and then we're going to bring on guest experiences, mine and the guest, to basically help you figure out how to pay for it. My husband and I retired on our real estate portfolio. We started investing. I think our first rental house was like the end of 2018, even. And then less than 10 years later, he was able to quit his job, and we were able to start traveling full time. I retired him early. He was 48, and I was 46. And so the last almost 4 years, we've just been hanging out with our 6 homeschooled kids and learning how all this works and just tapping into resources like Brian so we can make more of this life and be more efficient in the businesses that we do take on because we don't have to work anymore. Sometimes it's hard to take something on. And so being more efficient, getting systems and resources are exactly what people like Brian are for. So thanks for coming on today, Brian.
I am thrilled to be here. Thank you.
Yeah, good to meet you. So you give us a little bit of your background and what you do, how you kind of got here, because you've had a very interesting kind of lead up to what you're doing right now. So just give us a share, like pretend that we just met you at a networking event and I say, hey, Brian, what do you do?
Yeah, sure. So the newspaper headline is I run a nearshoring company, and
Mhm.
a lot of people know what offshore means. Big ocean in between,
Yeah.
time zone is not aligned.
Yeah.
Nearshoring is kind of relative to where you are in the world. So if you're in the States, you might offshore to the Philippines, but if you're in Australia, you might nearshore to the Philippines.
Okay.
And for the States, nearshoring is Latin America. How I got here is I came up through the talent world. Grew up in Chicago, ended up in San Francisco, worked for a bunch of these tech startups that are kind of everywhere, around the
Mhm.
city, led talent for them, and didn't know any entrepreneurs. Dad worked for the same company for 30 years. Um, so it was like a scary thing. And I guess you could say I took the least scary route to entrepreneurship in
Mhm.
that I had an idea and I found an investor willing to fund it.
Yeah.
And what investors typically do is they buy your time and focus so you can build the company and hopefully you both get a return on your time and investment. So I was in San Francisco, ended up raising about $2 million. And my thesis was I saw fintech companies everywhere. And if your audience doesn't know that term, it's like the new generation of little tech startups that are trying
Mhm.
to disrupt banking.
Yeah.
Most banks do a lot of things okay, but the tech startups do one thing really well. Could be lending, could
Mhm.
be investing, could be real estate, all sorts of stuff like that, insurance. And I saw that there was all these business people that had product visions, lots of capital, and were totally agnostic on how the software was built. So maybe even apathetic, you'd say.
Yeah.
So I said, all right, I think I've got an idea. He agreed. $2 million seemed like
Nice
$2
little.
billion for me for coming from the Midwest, but $2 million got me like nowhere in San Francisco. I started to had to put the cost projection together. I'm like, okay, we're gonna run out of this really quick. So ended up deciding on Argentina to build our business. Um, I relocated down there.
Okay.
So I lived there for about a year doing basically my first entrepreneurship on hard mode, I guess you could say. So I'm, you know, learning how to be an entrepreneur and in a different country with different rules and different banking, economics, legal, payroll,
Yeah.
everything. Um, but fast forward, grew that company to about 80 people. By then I had moved to Hawaii. We started to grow our little family, and there is no easy way to fly from Hawaii to Argentina.
No.
So I quickly just, this is not working for me anymore. And maybe what you said at the beginning of the show, Emma, like you want to try to create a life, you know, create the life that you want and have all your businesses and ideas funded. So I sold my shares in that business after 4 years, and then took some of the proceeds to stay in the nearshore world. I started another company that was kind of like leasing recruiters, called this RPO. Um, so instead of, like, most recruiters are paid like real estate agents, it's 000, and then you get a big check if you make a
Wow.
big placement, just like a real estate agent. They do a lot of work for free and then big checks.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I sold it on time and materials. So it didn't matter if my recruiters were making placements or not. I was billing recruiting time, and grew that from a $2,000 investment of my own money, grew that to a team of 60. So 7 figures and, EBITDA for me. And that was great, but it also was very uh, aligned with the highs and the lows of the tech industry, because that was
Yeah.
my customer base.
Yep.
So in 2020, when COVID hit, all projects stopped. In late 2020, when it was gangbusters for about 2 years, business was, I thought I was the world's greatest salesperson, but
Yeah.
I was just selling the right thing at the right time.
Yep.
I was the guy selling bottled water on a 105-degree day.
Yeah.
And uh, so, that kind of got rocky. But one thing I've always tried to do is, like, when something's going well, I take money off the table to invest in something else before
Yeah.
the first thing totally dies.
Yep.
So while that RPO company was at its peak, invested in another company that was doing full scale Latin America nearshore staffing. I have a full-time president for that business. So allows me to kind of play the founder visionary role and chase shiny things. And we've grown that to about 100 people, all over Latin America, Mexico, Argentina, Colombia, Peru, and so on and so forth. And we're basically working with US companies that want talent arbitrage. So they're basically getting a senior level person for what they would pay a junior person in the States.
Mm-hmm.
Latin America's got a lot of things going for it, but it also has enough volatility to make it still developing versus developed countries like the US and Canada.
Mm-hmm.
And that creates this kind of price disparity. So as long as you know how to navigate through some of the chaos and volatility, you can be a huge benefactor from that. And anyway, that led me to more and more investments as I take money off the table. I can talk more about that. But yeah, anywhere you want me to take it.
Yeah. Okay. This is that one of the reasons that your story interested me is my daughter just is a mechanical engineer and she's fluent in Spanish, and I have kind of been bugging her since she graduated, learn technical Spanish, because somebody like her in the States getting paid like an American in the States could be a really great liaison for a Latin American team, because I know my language is French and our VAs are in West Africa. And so I'm able to, even though the time zone thing is kind of a pain, I feel bad when I find out what time it is. Like they're at their peak working hours when they're on with us. But I am able to just kind of reiterate a little bit in French, like, just say in your own words, like, so we're making sure we're connecting. Their English is better than my French, and so we've been able to kind of patch something together. But I think that nearshoring is something that most people are overlooking. I feel like especially Mexico is really poised to take over a portion of the manufacturing that we've been seeing from out of China. Obviously, their population is way too small and scattered to do it on the scale that China does it. But I feel like there's a huge opportunity there for as Mexico is developing to basically be like the new mini China. And that we can be finding great staff because we tend to think of it like just virtual assistants, office assistants, and sometimes we'll get them into bookkeeping and some other things, but like some serious engineering and skill rising up in that area, just like what happened in China. I don't know, a couple decades ago, I guess. I don't know. Speak to me about the opportunity there.
Yeah. So there's kind of two lanes of either you're offshoring or nearshoring. There's industry and supply chain and factories making goods, and then there's the white collar work. Accounting, finance, marketing. And you're right, like virtual assistants kind of feels like the thing, but that's just scratching the tip of the iceberg.
Right.
Software developers, DevOps, and there's also a lot of really good leaders in Latin America. And I think that's forgotten about because it's ingrained in us. And I'm just going to be frank on your podcast. I hope you don't mind that.
We can speak in generalities if you like.
I think Asia is a fantastic place. But I had a unique experience where I did my MBA about 10 years ago in a joint program with UCLA in California and National University of Singapore. So I actually have 2 degrees. I've got a degree from the US and a degree from UCLA. And that program had sessions on campus in California and sessions on campus in Singapore. And the ones that were taught in Singapore were usually Singaporean or Chinese professors. The ones in the States, were Americans. And it was wild seeing the contrast because you go to Westwood, California, and they teach negotiation, and someone would challenge the professor and they thrived on it. Like, all right, let's debate.
Yeah.
Let's talk through this. Here's my point of view. Here's your point of view. Who's right? Who's wrong? Let's ask the class. Let's encourage this. When that attempted, the same cohort tried to do that in Asia with these Singaporean professors, shut down right away. Because I think there's a real focus on hierarchy, seniority. The elders in the room deserve the most respect. They know what they're doing. And all where I'm going with this is when you send work offshore, they're used to getting very, very descriptive. Like, this is the 18-step process that I want you to follow.
Yes.
And if you go outside the box, oh my God, like it's chaos. For example, if you call United Airlines and get connected to the call center in the Philippines is kind of like the call center for the world right now.
Mm-hmm.
If you just want to like, hey, I just want to change my flight from Boston to San Francisco, instead go Boston to LA, no problem. Let me do that for you, sir.
Mm-hmm.
But then if you're like, hey, actually, I want to add a different stop and I want to cash in miles for one of these.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh, you might as well like have asked them to, like build a space shuttle. It's really stressful and terrorizing for them. Meanwhile, if you do that in Latin America, no problem. They're used to kind of this ambiguity. They're used to solving problems all the time, from their daily life because they experience bad leadership and inflation, terrible banking policies. They always have to find a workaround for things like that, right?
Kind of getting scrapped.
So that's led to a workforce that I think is more capable of a wide variety of things, ambiguity, they can figure stuff out. And you can hire leaders and build teams down there.
Mm-hmm.
So I encourage people to do that. If you like, I can get more into the manufacturing question. I know I took a little detour, but
Yeah.
you
Well,
let me know.
I think it's actually kind of an important conversation because when you have a business partner, we are all going to have different strengths and weaknesses, and I feel like those strengths that I have, I'm going to find somebody who is strong where I'm weak. Like I'm not looking for them to be strong in the same things. In fact, usually the opposite is better because we can dovetail. When I was 19, I remember I was teaching English in the Czech Republic, and I was talking to one of the professors, and he was probably in his 40s. It was a small local university there. And he was talking about how he wished their education system was more like the American education system. And I was taken aback as a 19-year-old. All I'd heard in high school was how we're falling behind on test scores, and we used to be the world leader in this, and now we're not. And the education in the United States is terrible quality. And so I really grew up in that culture. And I said, what are you talking about? I said, your education system here seems to do so much better, a higher performer. He said, "Now, don't mix up the fact that we can whoop your butt on standardized tests. My kids know what year every war happened and all this. He
Mhm.
said, we will kill you when it comes to that." He goes, "But when was the last time somebody in this area of the world came up with an apple?" And Google didn't exist at that point. That's how long ago it was. He said, "When was the last time we came up with something else?" He said, "The creativity coming out of your educational system more than makes up for the lack of standardized testing." And that's when I kind of realized like humans are humans, but culture
Mhm.
is, and
Yeah.
in Latin America, specifically, one of the criticisms is that the super laid back, like island Polynesian culture type of, we're just laid back, we're just doing our thing, Hawaii, Latin America. And I've had some entrepreneur friends who have really relocated to Latin America specifically to take a break. And then they
Mhm.
found that their business acumen was kind of lacking, and they started trying business again, and they had to move back to the States to really like get the fire lit. And so I think that those cultural strengths and weaknesses are definitely real. It's there. It's like I lived in Eastern Europe in 1995 when communists, that mentality of I'm not here to help you. Like what do you want?
Yeah.
And going back years later and seeing the vast differences in culture that have arisen just in a couple of decades, I'm seeing those shifts shrink as the world becomes more connected through virtual or remote talent, because ones who perform well will rise up, and then they're teaching this like here's how you get up in this company, and here's how you perform, and here's what I want. As a graphic designer, same thing. We would hire out sometimes a Filipino VA, and they're great graphic designers, and they're sending me stuff that's in like the Chinese style. I'm like, it's beautiful. Like it's Chinese style is different than our style. Not one is better than the other. It's just that's not what I want here for an American audience. And the great example of that is like the eBay when they tried to go over and at eBay in China, and the graphics and the interface and all that just did not work.
Yeah.
That really redesign it for a Chinese audience. So while it can sound a little bit the precarious topic to talk about cultural differences, I think it's also can be a strength if you're looking at the strength and thinking like, okay, how do I take advantage of what they're good at, and where do I fill in with what they're bad at? And also being open to say like, and sometimes you get an outlier, and you have to be ready for that too. I think we get a little entrenched sometimes.
Yeah. I think there's, maybe for your audience, especially entrepreneurs that might be listening, if your most important thing right now is cost on labor,
Mhm.
Asia's always going to win. Okay.
Okay.
Asia will always beat Latin America. Um, and then, Asia's way more mature than Africa, right? Like Africa's just starting to get
Like
things off the ground.
economically or skill wise. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so Asia is always going to be the most low cost leader.
Mhm.
And if you are a really process driven person and you've got it all mapped out, you
I'm
might as
not.
well you might as well move into Asia. But me
This is why I can't
personally,
have a PA, because everything I do is high level strategy thinking, and I need
yeah,
somebody like come on, like
yeah,
I have had very, very bad results with
yeah,
VAs over the years to the
yeah.
point
So
where I
that's where I think,
just do it more.
that's where I think Latin America is really interesting because you can give something kind of ambiguous, like, hey, this is what I know.
Mhm.
This is the problem. Can you like figure this out?
Okay.
And they do it. And it's
Like a
awesome.
human ChatGPT. Like,
Yeah.
I'm
Yeah.
bound to
Yeah.
ideas and iterate
Yeah.
off of this, and I need somebody who's stepping and helping me ideate and then can go execute, like, "Yeah, let's do that," and
Yeah.
then they execute. And I haven't had luck with that.
And there's something that you said there that I just wanted to double in
Roland is at the front door.
is AI is everywhere, right? And I think we forget about that sometimes in the States that like we're the only ones that have access to ChatGPT and N8N and all these AI tools. Well,
Uh-huh.
they're using this stuff in Latin America. So imagine you can throw something with ambiguity over the wall to somebody in Latin America that's used to that. They can make sense of it and they're equipped with AI tools. I mean, this is the arbitrage of our lifetime. And this is the biggest leverage point for small business owners.
Yeah, it's an incredible type of opportunity that we're seeing here, and I don't think that it's been fully tapped into. So, I guess describe to me what the business looks like and who's your ideal client really on like
Yeah.
who is when you meet somebody, sometimes we just know like this like you said, you might do better in Asia or not having a VA or something like when you meet somebody, you're like, I can help this person. What does that person look like?
Yeah, sure. From a customer standpoint, um, there's no shame here. I've been this person many times myself where you're like just moving from I do everything myself
Hmm.
to I finally want to hire somebody,
Yeah.
but it's your own money. It's not some big, corporate money. It's your own money. So you feel the pain of every dollar. Um, I think Asia is a really great first place to go for it. And
Okay.
there's no shame. Um, but I think as your business starts to like move just a little bit and you've got just a little bit more cash to play with,
Hmm.
you're going to get better scale from Latin America because your small businesses can have new, unique problems every day that you're trying to solve and a lot of energy. Um, so just about us, we decided intentionally to be a small team of strong operators internally because I've made this mistake over and over and over again, where as soon as some revenue comes in, let's go big and let me build my empire and hire a lot of people. And even for somebody who's got a lot of experience hiring, advising on hiring, being a VP of talent for a lot of companies, um, hiring is hard. So it's very easy to just hire many mediocre people. So we've been intentional, small team, really good people that are doing high impact work. And that's led us to scale to about 100 external um, team members that we're billing out at US
Hmm.
customers. It's all US clients. Um, we will work with small businesses for sure. But as we get a little bit bigger, our capability is stronger for, the mid-market companies that are looking not just for one hire, but they're looking for teams, teams of
Okay.
people. Last thing I'll say is, no one's really coming to us for junior people.
Mm.
Um, and at the same time, I personally would advise companies not to hire executives outside your country, but Latin America can fill in all the gaps in between.
Okay.
Um, individual contributors, senior, and then also the leads, the middle managers, they've got
Hmm.
all that stuff covered.
Okay. So keep the C suite and the D suite in your locale. Yeah, my brother-in-law was a director at T-Mobile, and when they did the back to office, he's like, I don't want to go back to the office. We actually want to move to a different state.
Mhm.
Like, we're done with Seattle. And it was so important at that D-suite level to not just be in the United States, but also to be in the office. They were making it work during those couple of years out, but it became an issue, and now he's a director at a different company. because it's really, really important. And we saw, and not firsthand, but I guess secondhand, that conflict there of keeping your D suite and your C suite like close so you can get some work done, right? But I do agree with what you're saying. There's a big divide between the virtual assistant who needs a very careful bullet list and all of that, and somebody who can be an ideation and execution creative partner who can take initiative. I think the longer you're with a VA, the more they can start taking initiative because they learn like what you
Mm,
want, you're looking for.
yeah.
You get to understand each other better. I mean, there was one we had. I remember his accent was. I was struggling, and I don't normally struggle with accents, but in this one I was really, really struggling. And over time, I was just able to understand him better, and he was able to anticipate what we wanted better, and that one ended up being okay. He was like my partner's VA, and so he ended up being with our business for quite a while. But it's just like that comfortability with each other over time,
Mhm.
or going to develop more of a team like and almost some leadership over time. But out of the box, and especially if it's your first time doing a remote hire, like there's a steep learning curve for us to be able to know how to integrate the remote hires. Have you seen some of that with your clients or where you have
Yeah.
to train them how to use the resources? Cause they're like, this isn't working. And you're like, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah. I will say we've leveled up too because
Okay.
we've seen different, onboarding processes. The thing that I think companies, if I were to be asked, like, what's the biggest mistake companies make when they try to do this?
Mhm.
It's that they don't treat them like they're part of their team,
Oh,
right?
yeah.
It's like just kind of compartmentalized, like, oh, those are the guys from Brazil, and then they're on their own, and it's almost just like us versus them. Well,
Yeah.
the more you can just realize, like, hey, they're not low cost resources. Jao is part of our team, and
Mhm.
we're going to give Jao the same onboarding process that we give everybody else.
Okay.
That's how you create reduced risk, reduced attrition, higher engagement, better impact, better productivity. So
Mhm.
just treat them like you were doing the same onboarding for somebody in Florida or Ohio or New York or wherever.
Okay. So any remote worker from anywhere, how to put them on the same platform. Because I know I've seen my husband specializes in tech startups for their IT. And when virtual assistants first started becoming a thing, they were dabbling around with it a little bit, but they just didn't know
Yeah.
what they were doing, how to hire, how to utilize the resource. And that's kind of when I realized, even back then, before I really had my own business that needed that much help.
Yeah.
I had a small business and he's like, well, we have so and so from India. Like maybe you should look at, and I'm like, you have had so many problems getting your team up and running. And I can't handle it. So it's been very, very interesting to watch, to experiment, to dabble in it myself and with limited degrees of success. And I feel like I'm the one misusing the opportunity, not so much that the opportunity is not good. And so what would you say to somebody maybe like me who does not currently have any remote staff because I can't get my act together enough to integrate, train, onboard correctly,
Well,
get my
I
systems documented,
I
give them
love
another.
this question because this was me
Yeah.
many years ago. Um, and it took an executive coach to help me unlock
Mm,
this.
okay.
So if I could just pass down what somebody told me
Okay.
is, um,
I love getting the free version of your paid wisdom.
yeah, yeah, I don't know how much money I spent on it, but it's yours now. So, you know, um, the VA versus the executive assistant maybe, but I think VAs mostly are going to come into it like, all right, tell me what you want me to do, okay, and I'll do it. And then if they're in Asia, tell me what you want to do and tell me how you want me to do it. If they're in Latin America, tell me what you want me to do.
Okay.
Executive assistants, let me see all the things that you're working on, and I'll come back to you with ways that I can take these things off your plate.
Okay.
So you're not even using this brain space of like, I got to map this out and I got to have a KPI and deliverable and a timeline. Like they just look, observe, and they present. I think this is your highest priority thing. I can get this done by Friday. Um, this is the second highest priority thing. I can get this done in 2 weeks. Um, this is what I think you're trying to do here. It takes you from writer mode to
Mhm.
editor. And it's
Okay.
way easier in your brain when you're in editor mode. But part of that is, um, and I think there are executive assistants that are remote. They could be in Colorado, they could be in Colombia, like it doesn't matter.
Mhm.
That's how you know you got somebody who can help you is they can observe and then quickly help you prioritize, quickly turn those from your tasks to their tasks.
Yes. I think I got in trouble for that my first job out of high school. There was I had a talking to, which was actually one of the most helpful conversations I've ever had, about going from the not that I ever worked at McDonald's, but like that systemized, teenage job
Yeah.
to now being in a situation where you need to start being more aware of the larger organization, how we do things and anticipating your employer's needs. I was like, oh, now I have to be a mind reader. Like I definitely don't like in that difficult position where there was a skill they were asking me to upskill. I didn't have it. I didn't even know that was a thing. And then I kind of went too far the other direction where now I'm anticipating. I'm like, you spent a lot of time on that thing that didn't need to get done. So
Yeah.
there's a balance to strike there for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think it's the communication of, this is what I think your priorities are. Can you
Yeah.
validate? Right.
Yes. Goodness, my family, all my kids, most of my kids are young adults now and working in careers and we're all reading the book Managing Up together.
Okay.
It's like
Okay.
how to manage a manager,
Yeah.
how to prioritize things, help your manager prioritize things. It's basically a lot of managers have never had examples of great managers, and so we don't know how
Oh,
to
yeah.
manage because we've never been managed well, and we're learning it from a book and trying to test it out on people who work for us, or we're learning it from a book and trying to test it out on a manager above us that we don't really have any control over. So I don't think that these issues necessarily go away just because now you've hired a remote team. I think sometimes it can be amplified, and so just people kind of going into that with the attitude of strengths and weaknesses. Maybe I'm not a very good manager and I need to upskill. Maybe they don't know how to deal with the bad manager, because that's a skill as well. I mean, just so many communication and human relations issues here. So important.
Yeah.
But one last question before we wrap up. How big of a deal is the time zone? Because like I said, I feel bad that my assistant is up late, when they have families. And I also wonder, am I getting them at their freshest, most productive time of the day? But I've also worked on kind of alternate shifts before, and you do get used to it. So how much should time zone be a consideration of who we're hiring overseas?
When we talk to our customers, it's everything. It
Okay.
really, and for me too, it's huge. I think there's kind of two elements here. There's you're either sacrificing workday confusion because everybody's working when the sun's up for them.
Mhm.
So you're sending an email, here's all the things I need to get done. And you're hoping you wake up the next day, your email, and it's everything you asked for in the right way. But what if it's not understood or they miss something, whatever? Then all of a sudden you lost a day and then you hope your next instructions clarify it. Like something that could have gotten done in a couple hours maybe takes the whole week because you're back and forth, back and forth, back and
Mhm.
forth. The other alternative, especially if you're offshoring, is let's say somebody is working your time zone. Somebody's making, somebody's suffering, right?
Yeah.
And as much as like third shift is built into Asia, Philippines, India, people are working overnight. That's not easy. It's not easy on the body. It's not easy on their lives. A lot of them have families. So, they're going straight from like a third shift to Now they got to get their kids ready for school, and maybe they sleep 4 hours, from 11 a.m. to 3 p.m. And then they got to prepare dinner for their families, and then they're back on the clock. And I mean, it just wreaks havoc, right? It's just really, really rough. So turnover, poor quality of work, from sleep deprivation, burnout, all that stuff is real.
Mhm.
So me personally, I think having people on your time zone where quickly jump on a WhatsApp or a Zoom or a text and, hey, I had a question about this. You got to figure it out right away, right in real time. And everybody's just working normal hours. So burnout and performance it's not even a thing.
Measurable, yeah. Since we started traveling full time, we're in Mountain Time Zone, and we went from there to Pacific Time. Spent a couple of weeks in Hawaii. Then we spent 3 months in Florida on East Coast time. Then we were 6 months in Texas on Central Time, and then we did another 6 months in Mountain, and 6 months in Alaska time. And I gotta tell you, like, I never before have I realized like what a difference the time zone can make, even just between like Pacific time and Eastern time. I loved Hawaii and Alaska because I could just get up and work early in the morning and then had kind of the rest of the day to do what I wanted. That was the best. And so I kind of wonder, it's almost the reverse with the Latin America, because let's say you're on the Pacific or Mountain or even Central time zone, right? You go straight south and you're hitting the west coast of South America. And so the east coast of South America is like kind of out in the ocean for us. And so
Oh, can I
it's a
comment on that real quick?
yes,
Because
please.
I think there's something really cool here. So I lived in Argentina,
Okay.
which you look at the map, it juts out, right? You know what time they're eating dinner in Argentina?
Oh, like 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, that's true. Okay. I
That's
mean,
early.
yeah.
So
I'm like, why are we when in Europe,
I
same
would
thing. Why are we eating
see,
at 10:30?
I would see young families with little kids come into a restaurant on Sunday night at
Yeah,
11 p.m.
that's
They're
yeah,
entering the restaurant.
that's
And
true.
by the way, like, isn't it crazy? Like, these are some of the most beautiful people in the world, and they're, you know, eating giant steaks at midnight,
Yeah.
smoking cigarettes, it's like the, all the worst things that they could do. And, they look great. But because of that late dinner time,
Okay.
and Brazil is pretty similar, you almost have this perfect alignment.
Okay.
Uh, it's really, really accommodating.
That's a good point because that was one thing I noticed when we were living on the East Coast is the East Coast has more of that South American, European. They're out late. They did not think anything. I was like, it's 7 o'clock. Why am I at a Zoom call? I was ready for bed. West Coasters, we go to bed early. And it's not just because
Yeah.
we're old. I think it's a combination of being old and also the culture of the West Coast being earlier than the East Coast. That's a lot
Yeah.
of hours. And
Yeah.
I can kind of see, yeah, there's another point about culture being different. So it's not just about time zone, it's about how the culture handles the different time zone. Because even from the East Coast to the West Coast, there was a dramatic difference in the attitude of, I mean, like even Miami, when we're there, it was like everybody's going out to party at 10 p.m. already. And I'm like, are we done yet? Like
Yep.
some, some cultural considerations. Yeah. Great information. I think that I just want to convey to the listener, like this is a skill set to be able to hire. It's just like if you're hiring in the United States, like some people just don't know how to HR. And it's a big learning curve when you start putting a team together. And there can be more learning curve as you're dealing with different cultures, remote time zones, things like that. So just to take into consideration the fact that it's not going to be as seamless and easy as sometimes like a VA placement service makes it sound like, oh, they're going to take all this off your hands. Don't be disappointed by having mismatched expectations with reality and lean into people like Brian, especially if you're hiring from, whatever agency that you're hiring from or whatever area of the world. You've done this a lot and you're a resource there for your client. It's not like they just plug it in like a recruiter and then the recruiter's gone. Like you're doing a lot of support and you have lessons systems that you can share as well. So I appreciate you sharing them with the audience, but I just want the audience to remember like there's more. There's more, right? So if you want to get into this, Brian, how do people get in touch with you?
The website for Plug is plugg.tech. And there's a contact form there, or Brian at plug.tech. Happy to.
Ah,
Yeah.
perfect. Brian with an I.
So did I. That's right.
Brand
That's right.
new. So yeah, I know some of you are listening in and some of you are watching. And so plugg.tech or BRIAN at plug.tech. And you can get a hold of me as always at investwithemma.com. It's just go straight to my calendar link. We can talk about whatever you want. I don't have a call to action. I just think networking is how we find opportunities, how we find the right people. And I'm happy to talk about business, investing, real estate, whatever it is. And I appreciate you listening and sharing your time with us so you can find your own passive income so that you can go on amazing adventures that changes not only your lives, but the lives of the communities. Like that's why I do what I do. And I appreciate you coming along for the journey. And I'll see you next week for our next passive income adventure. Thanks again, Brian.